Welcome to this explainer. Okay, today we're putting on our forensic auditor hats to investigate a massive systemic financial anomaly. We're looking at the ultimate fiscal imbalance. Think of this as an autopsy of a national budget gone wrong. It's a scenario where the numbers tell a story of escalating risks, hidden traps, and macroeconomic consequences that literally affect every single one of us. Okay, let's dive into this. The fundamental catalyst for this whole failure is actually pretty simple. What happens when a government consistently spends money it just doesn't have? Well, the answer unlocks an incredibly complex, dangerous chain reaction that can completely destabilize an entire economy. We aren't just talking about a minor overdraft at your local bank here, right? We're talking about structural, systemic overspending at a massive national level.
Let me direct your attention to Exhibit A. This equation right here is the literal DNA of the government's unbalanced budget. Fiscal deficit equals total budgetary expenditure, minus revenue receipts, minus capital receipts, but crucially excluding borrowings. So what does that actually mean for us? Well, this formula exposes the exact gap between what the government intends to spend and its actual hard revenue before it has to go out with a begging bowl to make up the difference. So the crucial point is, this isn't just some random financial metric. The fiscal deficit is the premier key indicator of budgetary deficit in India. It's really the most comprehensive measure of fiscal imbalance in the entire economy. It totally strips away the illusion of financial health and shows us the absolute, unvarnished total borrowing requirements of the state. It is the ultimate reality check on exactly how deep the financial hole really is.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how it maps out our borrowing compass. When a government faces this massive fiscal deficit, where exactly does it hunt for the cash to plug that hole? Well, it has four main targets. First, it taps into market loans from financial institutions. Second, it absorbs public borrowings through various small savings schemes. They're essentially borrowing from everyday people's savings. Third, it can go directly to the central bank, the Reserve Bank of India. And finally, if it's still coming up short, it resorts to external borrowings from outside the country. This compass tracks every single avenue of the state's desperate search for funds to balance the books.
Like any good forensic investigation, we need to trace the exact sequence of events. Let's map the anatomy of this systemic threat unfolding, kind of like a set of falling dominoes. Step 1, it all starts with that initial government borrowing to cover the immediate deficit. Simple enough, right? But that triggers Step 2, a massive increase in future liabilities because now the government owes both the principal amount and the interest. And that inevitably forces Step 3, new borrowing initiated purely to pay off the interest on the old loans. It is a terrifying, self-replicating loop.
And this brilliantly illustrates the textbook diagnosis of our economic patient, the dreaded debt trap. It's a vicious cycle where a government must take out new loans simply to pay back the interest on its old loans. The borrowed money isn't building new bridges, schools, or hospitals anymore, it's just servicing past debts. The economy is literally running on a treadmill, sweating profusely but going absolutely nowhere, while that pile of debt just keeps growing larger and larger. But the damage doesn't stop at the government's balance sheet. We're now entering the danger zone, facing two severe, side-by-side systemic threats. On one hand, high fiscal deficits often foster wasteful state spending. The government gets used to easy, borrowed money and just kind of loses its fiscal discipline. But consider the second threat, severe inflationary pressure. This is where the macroeconomic anomaly hits your wallet directly. When a large fiscal deficit leads to pumping borrowed money into the system, it generates widespread price increases across the entire economy. It impacts your everyday reality. The cost of your groceries, your rent, your fuel, they all surge because of this underlying fiscal imbalance. Which brings us to our final, frankly chilling exhibit. Who really pays the ultimate price when a country falls into a fiscal debt trap? Well, it's not just the politicians or the accountants who signed off on the budgets today. By taking on this immense compounding interest burden to fund current consumption, the government is essentially passing the bill forward. It creates an undue, crushing burden on future generations. They are the ones who will ultimately bear the pinch of this systemic anomaly. It's a pretty sobering thought to leave you with, and definitely something to keep your eye on the next time you hear the words fiscal deficit. Keep questioning the numbers, and we'll see you next time.